Yesterday was a day of vindication for me, if I may say so.
That was a big Charlie Kirk W day.
It was great. I got to say that was the day of whether or not I'm going to be further blamed for something that's actually not my fault, which of course is, people love pointing fingers at Charlie. It's like acting as if I have more power than I really do. But it's kind of a running joke around.
Did you know, Charlie, the GOP won every election until you came along.
No, that's right, exactly. I'm all the problems wrapped into one, but none of the credit. Right? If something goes right, it's never my credit. But so the Veep stakes were unfolding, and I've known JD for a while. We were one of the first organizations to endorse JD Vance for the Senate primary in Ohio, very early.
Very early, as Tyler told us. Remember that?
Super early, yeah.
But by accident, really early.
Yeah, in fact, it was so much so that I personally endorsed him, and we had an endorsement ready to go for JD Vance, and we sent out the endorsement graphic like 2 months early. So we made a lot of friends with that one. JD Vance, at the time, was polling at 2% in the Ohio Senate primary, ran a great race, got Trump's endorsement, which obviously was the main reason he won the primary. He ascended, won the U.S. Senate election against a good candidate, Tim Ryan, and was a great senator, very loyal to President Trump. And remember the moment where JD Vance and Donald Trump combined forces as they both needed each other in a unique moment, which was East Palestine. Donald Trump's campaign was objectively not going well up until East Palestine.
His heart wasn't really in it at first.
Yeah, it wasn't the Trump that we love. And it was like, hey, do you want to do this? Was kind of what some people were saying. And East Palestine got him back into fighting shape. He was talking to people face to face. They were pleading for his help. And I think President Trump got his why back. He's like, I'm fighting for these people. Like, that's why I'm running for president. Let's do this thing. And I think he went to like McDonald's afterwards or something.
Probably. He's been there more than Kamala has.
But JD Vance was kind of the host, if you will, of Donald Trump's visit to East Palestine, Ohio. Can you find the date? I think East Palestine was like February 2023, if I'm not mistaken. It was early, January, February 2023. It was early in the year, and it was a major news story completely ignored by Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. And JD Vance, what was the date?
It was, so the train derailed February 3rd. He was there the 22nd.
Perfect, great. So 2023.
Yes.
Okay, great. So that really was the reset of the Trump campaign, and there was no looking back from that point forward. And so Donald Trump spent the whole day with JD Vance, and he was remarking to his team, I like that guy. It's like, he's smart. He doesn't interrupt me. He listens to me, which is a big deal. Don't interrupt Trump. And he's like, he gives great advice. And so they really grew together, and JD Vance became one of Donald Trump's fiercest supporters in the U.S. Senate on cable television and news networks. And all this, I wasn't thinking at first JD Vance was even in the possibility of being considered for a serious vice presidential contender. And then fast forward to 2024, all of a sudden, I was hanging out with President Trump and his team, and, people were like, what do you think about JD? I'm like, I love JD. Is he being considered? They're like, the president likes him. He's seriously on a list of 10 other people. And it kind of, that list got kind of whittled down and whittled down and whittled down to about 5 people. And I remember I was like, I'm going to go all in. I know JD. He's legit. He's a patriot. He sees the world the right way. He's super articulate. He's a good man. He's a loyal father. He's an incredible husband. And I said, let's just try to do whatever we can to make JD Vance the VP. And you saw it kind of all happen.
It was a very impressive thing. And I just want to add, the way JD's like a great hard worker in a lot of ways. I remember he spoke at the People's Convention in Detroit, and you tell this story.
Yeah, this is a great story. So this is 3 weeks before he gets selected as the vice president. And so I'm like, yo, JD, you got to come to our event in Detroit. A lot of cameras will be there. And he's like, man, it's my anniversary weekend. He's like, but I'll do it. I totally get it. He's like, let me see what I can do. So JD's like, hey, can I close out your conference on Sunday? Because my anniversary is on Saturday. I got to be with my wife for my anniversary. I totally get it. And so JD shows up at the event and just kind of shows in at our random check-in table. He just shows up at the mezzanine areas if you're buying a ticket, and he's like, "Hello, I'm Senator Vance. I'm here to speak." It introduces himself, and
he drove himself there. Correct?
That's what I'm getting at. And so then our team is like, "Well, where's your team, your entourage?" He's like, I gave my team the weekend off. JD Vance, this is a true story. JD Vance drove himself on a Sunday morning from Columbus, Ohio to Detroit and back by himself, no staff, no one with him, literally just as like a regular dude showing up at a conference on a Sunday, and took pictures of everybody, hung out with everybody, and like literally our team was blowing me up. They're like, this is the best speaker we've ever had, super easy. And like literally our team, understand, there's people that, you know, are like running for dog catcher in like Eastern Tennessee that show up at Turning Point events with like a 9-person entourage. Okay. And this is a guy who is a legit finalist for the vice president. At that time, he was in the final 3. It was Rubio, Burgum, JD Vance, and maybe Tim Scott, final 4. And there's no one like doing social media stuff. There's no one like, okay, well, JD's going to enter this way. No like advance. This guy's a U.S. senator of a major state of Ohio, the bordering state, and he just shows up by himself. Totally. By the way, that shows to me tons of self-confidence. If you can show up with, and you know, just like totally by yourself, you know, you can kind of like, you know, you kind of navigate it yourself. And so anyway, so he gives a great speech, drives himself back. It was remarkable. And so the process unfolds, and just remember, and then we'll get into the debate, but I just want to also thank you guys, the audience. You guys, the audience, made a huge difference in this. Remember, I was soliciting, do you guys want JD or not? Do you want Marco Rubio, Doug Burgum? Do you want Nikki Haley? I would show the president what you guys were thinking in real time.
Nikki Haley, would you have done it if they? I love Nikki Haley, Charlie.
No, but I would have scolded all of you. Like, no, but you guys that were always communicating and taking our polls and emailing me freedom@charliekirk.com. I would literally show the president, and I would text the team. I'd be like, hey, this is what our audience wants. This is what our millions of people want. This is the vibe of the base. So you guys played a role in all of this, and JD Vance gets selected. Remember. 48 hours after Trump gets shot, JD Vance became the VP. Wild week. We were there in Milwaukee. One of the craziest weeks ever. For me, very satisfying. But the weeks that followed is the establishment and the media were going after JD super hard. Cat lady stuff, all this misrepresentation. And JD Vance, climbed out of that, did really well. But still there was kind of this question amongst smug DC circles. Was JD really the right pick? Like, can he hold his own? Last night was a triumph and a vindication. Even never Trumpers like Meghan McCain we're like, okay, this is legit. In fact, debate graders were saying this was the most impressive vice presidential debate performance that they have seen in the modern era. It was, and I'll go through all the elements of why it was good and what it means politically. But just for me personally, and for those of us, and for those of you that pushed for JD Vance, you should feel really good about yourself. Because this was far better than Mike Pence ever did in a debate. This was far better than Paul Ryan ever did in a debate. And I think it actually will make a difference in the election, because this election right now is tied everywhere. As Nate Silver says, it's the closest election ever. And it will help bring soft, moderate Republicans home. But this also, the final thing I'll say is President Trump deserves the credit for trusting his gut and his instinct. All of the warmongers and the neoconservatives and multiple billionaires were doing a lobbying effort against Trump, saying, do not pick JD Vance, do not pick JD Vance, do not pick JD Vance. And JD Vance Donald Trump defied them all, and he made a decision. Listening to the base, listening to the American people, listening to the grassroots. And I got to be honest, the Trump team and the Trump movement, we are blessed to have JD Vance. And last night, that was on full display. We will play the tape. We'll go through it in methodical detail. But it's a great night. And honestly, this feels even better than the June debate, because we are now voting right now. Voting is happening right now. This is when points can actually go on the board.